brook. It is not to be confused with Zoar, the place to which Lot escaped from Sodom and Gomorrah.
It's more than 10 kilometers, more than 10,000 meters of a salt cave. It's a very unique cave by that perimeter.
Further, as the university explains it, salt caves are geographical living things.
In one of the hottest, driest places on Earth, a tall, human-shaped pillar stands where no normal pillar should be. Its salt is different, its shape is unnatural, and its location matches, almost perfectly, the escape path described in one of the oldest stories on record. Researchers came with scanners and tools, but the deeper they looked, the stranger the findings became. Because this pillar didn't just look like Lot's wife, some say it behaves like it too.
Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more awe-inspiring stories of faith, survival, and miracles.
The desert is a place where time breaks apart. Heat bends the air, salt cuts the ground. The wind moves slowly, as if even it feels the weight of this forgotten land. Yet in this harsh place, something stands that should not exist. A tall pillar of salt, shaped like a person, rising alone from the face of Mount Sodom. At first glance, it seems like a natural accident. But the closer you look, the more the questions begin. And the answers only open more questions. It began with a team of researchers, each carrying tools meant to study the strange caves and salt walls near the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is already a place filled with mystery. Its water is so heavy with salt that nothing can live in it. Its shores break into white crystals, and its land, hollow, cracked, burnt, seems trapped in a memory of fire. Anyone who walks here feels it. Something happened, something great, something violent, and whatever it was, the land has never let it go. Researchers knew all this. They came expecting heat, dryness, and long stretches of empty rock. But they did not expect a shape. Not like this. Not standing alone. Not rising in a spot that lined up with an ancient escape path written in scripture thousands of years ago. They stopped, and for a moment, none of them spoke. The pillar wasn't just tall, it wasn't just narrow, it had a form, uneven but strangely similar to a person wrapped in a cloak. One part curved like a shoulder, another part bent like a head turned slightly to the side, as if caught in a moment of fear or regret. It stood near the southern stretch of Mount Sodom, a salt mountain 11 kilometers long, a place made almost entirely of salt pushed upward over thousands of years by the pressure of the earth. But this single pillar stood apart, like it had been lifted out of the mountain and shaped by something more than wind. Wind alone could not explain the way it leaned. Rain could not explain its curves. Natural erosion could not fully explain its posture. And that is why the team moved closer. But the closer they came, the stranger the readings became. Their scanners, meant to measure the density of the salt, picked up sudden shifts inside the pillar. Small gaps, thin layers, a pattern of flow that didn't match the rest of the mountain. It was as if something had hardened quickly, too quickly for normal salt growth. One researcher marked it down, another took a picture, but another simply stared, saying under his breath, "This doesn't make sense." That was only the beginning, because when they checked the map, the exact coordinate, they realized something that made the entire group go silent again. They were standing on the path that leads east, the same direction the Bible describes Lot and his family running as Sodom burned behind them, the same escape route that rises toward the hills away from the cities that once sat near the Dead Sea. And this pillar, it stood behind that route, not in front of it, behind it, as if it had once been someone who stopped to look back. For years, people have argued that Lot's wife's story was only symbolic, a tale meant to teach, not to record history. But here, in front of these researchers, was a shape the land had carved or preserved into something that looked far too human to be ignored. Yet if this pillar truly was tied to her story, then another question arose. What happened to the cities? What happened to the land? And why did the Bible describe brimstone and fire falling from the sky? The researchers had those questions too. They followed the slope downward, moving toward places where ancient settlements once stood. The ground was uneven. The rocks were dark. Some looked as if they had melted, not gently, but suddenly. Melted like wax under a flame. They found pieces of stone fused together, something that only happens under temperatures far beyond the heat of normal fire. Temperatures that could only be reached by something explosive, something falling from above, something the ancient people would have had no way to describe except with the words they knew. Brimstone, fire, from heaven. And then, inside cracks of the earth, the team found something even stranger. Small, round balls of sulfur. Not ordinary sulfur, not the kind found scattered in other places. These were almost pure, 98%. Bright, smooth, perfect spheres, embedded in the walls like bullets frozen in time. They tried to burn one, and it ignited with a fierce blue flame, hotter than they expected, too hot. Hot enough to melt buildings. Hot enough to turn stone soft, hot enough to destroy a city in moments. But the desert still held more secrets. As the sun beat down on them, the group found another layer of destruction, thin white lines across the ground, running like veins through the earth, thick salt layers covering the soil, salt where no sea had flowed, salt in patterns that matched sudden flooding or sudden evaporation. Almost as if a wave of salt had washed over the land, then settled quickly under intense heat. They looked around. There were no rivers, no lakes, no ocean tides. How did this happen? One researcher suggested an ancient explosion. Another suggested a firestorm. Another mentioned a meteor airburst, a sudden blast above the ground, like the one that flattened a forest in Siberia in 1908. A blast that could send heat downward, melting stone, throwing fire, and leaving behind nothing but destruction. Could something like that have happened here? But before they could answer, one team member noticed something in the distance. Another pillar, smaller, half broken, then another leaning sideways. These were not human-shaped. They were rough, sharp, but their presence raised a thought no one dared to say out loud. What if the whole region had once held shapes like this? What if erosion hid most of them? What if only one remained that looked human? And what if that one stood in the exact place where an ancient woman made a decision that changed her fate forever? The Bible says she looked back, not with her feet, but with her heart. She longed for the place God told her to leave, and in that moment, she became part of the land, a pillar of salt. But was this pillar evidence of that moment? Or was it only a natural accident, shaped by time and chance? The team didn't know, but the land was not finished speaking. As they moved closer to the tall salt figure once more, they noticed something else. At the base of the pillar, the salt was different, thicker, warmer, almost like it had hardened fast after being heated. The shape's outer layer was smoother than expected, almost like it had been formed quickly and then cooled. They tested the salt with their tools. The readings were odd. The structure differed from the rest of the mountain. And then came the strangest thing. One researcher tapped the pillar with a small hammer. A low, hollow echo returned. The mountain behind them made no such sound. The pillar was not the same. It was not uniform. Something about it had changed over time, or had been changed. But what? Before they could continue, the wind picked up. It blew across the desert floor, sweeping grains of salt into small circles. The sky grew pale, and in that moment, The pillars scattered across the ridge stood still, like silent watchers over a secret the land refused to bury. One of the researchers whispered, "If this is Lot's wife, then what happened here was no ordinary event."
What if this was not the result of slow erosion? What if this had formed fast, too fast, and had captured something in the moment of formation? Before they could speak again, the wind rose. The sound it made was thin, almost like a voice, low in the air. It slipped through the cracks of the salt walls around them. And in that moment, something else caught their attention. A series of small indentations along the pillar's right side. Indentations shaped like fingers. Not perfect, not clear, but curved and spaced in a way that made the researchers step back. The markings climbed part of the pillar like a frozen imprint of someone reaching out, grasping, or bracing against something. Now, the team felt something they had not expected to feel: unease. Because the Bible did not say she tripped, it did not say she stumbled, it did not say she reached out for help, it simply said she turned, she looked back, and in that moment, she became something the desert would never forget. The researchers tried to calm their thoughts. They were scientists. They needed evidence, facts. They needed something that explained why the pillar had changed overnight. But the desert kept feeding them new details. As they walked around the base, one member pointed out another feature, a subtle, gentle bend near the top, like a head leaning slightly to the right. The shape had been there yesterday, but today it looked more defined, as if the erosion had sharpened its outline, or something else had. By now, the team had dozens of photos and notes, but questions kept piling higher. Why did this one pillar look human when the others nearby did not? Why did it stand on the exact escape route written in the ancient text? Why did its density differ from the surrounding salt wall? And why was it changing? But this pillar was only the start of the puzzle. The team continued along the ridge, studying smaller salt columns that leaned or stood broken. One piece of salt crystal stuck out from a cliff face, holding a faint burn mark. Not black like charcoal, but a dark brown streak as if scorched by something intense. That detail pulled the researchers deeper into the history of the land. They remembered the fused stones they found, the melted clay, the sudden destruction mapped into the earth. They remembered the pure sulfur spheres buried like markers in the soil. And then they remembered the ancient text that described what fell from heaven that day: brimstone and fire.
But this wasn't the only record. Ancient writers long before modern archaeology wrote of strange ruins around the Dead Sea. Jewish historian Josephus mentioned a pillar of salt that locals claimed was the body of Lot's wife. Early Christian pilgrims wrote of the same. Muslim scholars described a woman-shaped salt figure that stood as a warning from God. These stories came from different cultures, different times, yet they all pointed to the same place. And now modern researchers were standing in that same place, seeing details that aligned with those old accounts. The deeper they walked, the more they saw the land itself telling a story of sudden destruction, not slow decay. But the most shocking discovery lay ahead. As the team moved farther down the slope, they entered an area where the salt ground curved downward, a shallow basin. Inside it lay small pieces of pottery. Not full vessels, just fragments. Each one twisted or warped, as if softened in heat and then broken. One piece held a clear ripple pattern across its surface, the type left only when clay melts and cools too fast. Another member shouted for the others to come. He had found a patch of soil that was different from the rest, darker, fine-grained, almost like ash. But when he pressed it between his fingers, it didn't crumble like normal ash.
It felt heavier, sticky. The layer was thin but spread wide, as if a wave of burning material had passed over the land in a single instant. The lead researcher's voice lowered. A blast. Another added, or something falling from the sky. The idea was frightening, but the evidence fit. Sudden heat, melted stone, twisted pottery, pure sulfur, burn patterns, destruction spread evenly across the land. Not a slow fire, not a city burning house by house. A single moment, a single event, a single burst. And the desert never healed. Yet the pillar continued to call them back. The team returned to it at midday to compare readings. The sunlight hit the salt figure at a sharp angle, revealing something they had not noticed during the morning light. A long, thin line ran from the top of the pillar down to its middle, almost like a fold in fabric. Another line cut downward, joining the first, forming a shape that, if you stepped back, looked like the outline of a garment. The group fell quiet. The desert wind slowed. Heat shimmered over the ground. Salt pillars do not form clothes. Another member stepped closer and noticed a small indentation on the left side, shallow, subtle, but shaped like the edge of a foot. Not perfect, but enough to make the mind replay a story it had heard long ago. A family running, a woman slowing, a turn of the head, a moment of longing, and then silence. The deeper the team studied the details, the more they realized something troubling. This pillar was not an isolated anomaly. The land around it carried signs of sudden transformation. The destruction layer, the sulfur spheres, the fused earth, even the scattered remains of ancient towns nearby, everything pointed toward a catastrophic event. Yet despite the destruction, one figure remained standing. One shape survived the storm. One outline echoed the story written in the ancient text. Daylight stretched across the mountain, and one of the researchers finally said the words none of them dared to speak hours earlier. "It looks like a person."
But another whispered, "It looks like a memory." Still another said, "Or a warning." And then everything changed again. The team had set up a scanner to study the inside of the pillar. The scanner pulsed waves through the salt and recorded the echoes that returned. But on this scan, something unexpected appeared. A vertical line inside the pillar, thin, dense. Not salt, not stone. Something else. Something lodged deep within the pillar. They ran the scanner again. The same reading returned. A straight, narrow line, like the remains of something once held or something once worn. The team stared at the image, unsure what to make of it. "Is it a crystal vein?" one asked. "No," another said. "Crystal veins aren't straight." "Then what is it?" Silence followed. No one had an answer. But as they examined the scan closer, something else caught their attention. Tiny pockets near the top of the pillar. Small, empty chambers. Not random bubbles. Chambers arranged in a pattern. Like the spaces formed when something collapses and hardens too fast. "What could cause this?" a member whispered. A moment passed, another replied, "Heat. Extreme heat. The kind of heat that melts stone. The kind of heat that leaves sulfur embedded in walls. The kind of heat that strikes suddenly from above." The researchers stood around the pillar, their thoughts racing, their hearts uneasy. Everything they had seen pointed toward an ancient catastrophe. But now, they were seeing hints of something else. Something personal. The pillar wasn't just part of the landscape. Something inside it had structure.
Patterns, lines, chambers, as if it had captured more than just salt. But before they could continue their tests, the ground trembled gently beneath their feet. A soft vibration, a movement deeper underground. The Dead Sea region lies on a major fault line, and tremors are not rare, but this one felt different, short, sudden, like something shifting within the mountain. The pillar gave a soft groan, a sound almost impossible to describe, a sound of tension inside the salt. The researchers stepped back, and then they saw it. Just a small movement, but enough to make the entire group freeze. Near the top of the pillar, something changed shape. A line sharpened, a curve deepened, a shadow formed where none had been. It was small, subtle, but real. The pillar had moved. Salt pillars do not move. But this one did. And in that moment, every researcher looked at the pillar and then at each other. The lead researcher finally whispered the feeling none of them could deny. This thing is trying to tell us something. But the desert wasn't finished revealing its secrets, because only a few steps away, hidden behind a ridge, another discovery awaited. A discovery far older, far stranger, and far more important. What they found next would change everything they believed about the cities of the plain and the woman who looked back. When the researchers stepped around the ridge, they expected to see more of the same: salt, cracks, wind-carved cliffs. But instead, they found something far older than the pillar and far harder to explain. It was a wall. Not tall, not complete, just a short stretch of stone set tightly together, half buried under salt. The stones were fused along the edges, melted as if held to fire, yet the pattern they formed was unmistakable.
This was not natural. Someone had built this long ago. The team knelt, brushing away the loose grains. The ground around the stones was a blend of salt powder and dark soil, as if something had burned the earth before the salt settled over it. One member scanned the top layer. The reading showed intense heat damage, far beyond a normal fire. A strange feeling moved through the group. This could be part of an ancient structure, maybe a home, maybe a wall, maybe a city. And then the thought came, could this have belonged to Sodom? Before they could speak out loud, the wind shifted, pulling hot air across the ruins. The air carried a faint smell, not sulfur, not dust, but something sharp, like burned minerals rising from deep in the earth. The researchers exchanged uneasy glances. The desert was trying to speak again. One of the team members followed the half-buried wall with his hand, tracing its edge until it ended under a thick rise of salt. At that edge, something glimmered in the sun, something small and curved. He brushed away more salt. A pottery handle, twisted, melted, deformed so tightly it looked as if someone had grabbed it while it softened. But the clay had not simply burned, it had liquefied. Nothing melts clay like that, one researcher whispered. Another answered, except a blast hotter than any wildfire. They laid the fragment down gently. It was still solid, but warped like frozen waves. And next to it, more pieces appeared, curved shards with ripples, as if caught mid-melt and hardened in seconds. The slope held dozens of these fragments, scattered like memory shards of something terrible.
Then the team's lead geologist noticed something that made the others lean in closer. One piece of clay had a pattern, a repeated mark, straight, even, like the edge of a woven basket or a cloth pressed against the clay before it cooled. But that would mean the clay had melted while objects were still inside the home. A sudden attack, a sudden firestorm, a sudden destruction, just like the ancient record described. The team walked farther, spreading out across the slope, and in less than a few minutes they found more. Part of a stone block with a burn mark across the middle, blackened at one end. A fused clump of two rocks melted together. A smooth pocket in the soil where something extremely hot had landed. Their steps slowed. Every new detail pushed the same thought into their minds. This was not the quiet ruin of a city worn down by time. This was the aftermath of a disaster. A sudden, violent event that struck the land so fast that homes melted before they fell. The deeper they walked, the clearer the pattern became. Melt, burn, collapse, a layer of destruction that ran across the land like a sealed memory. Yet the force that caused all this did not just destroy stone and clay. It left the land salted. It left pure sulfur buried in walls. It left the earth fused, glassy, shaped by heat reaching thousands of degrees. And it left one figure standing: the pillar. But the land around the ruin held more secrets. A researcher at the back called out. He had found something glowing faintly in a pocket of soil. A small sphere, smooth, pale yellow, almost perfect. Another sulfur ball. He held it up, and the group recognized the same purity as the earlier ones, so pure that laboratories struggled to explain it. Most sulfur in nature mixes with minerals, but not here. Here it drops into the ground like the desert kept its own store of fire. One researcher rolled the sphere between his fingers. "This is not normal sulfur." Another replied, "This is the type that burns blue." Blue, the hottest flame sulfur makes, a flame that eats through stone, that leaves a smell so strong it sticks to the air. A flame that ancient people would describe the only way they knew how: fire from heaven. As they examined more of the land, they realized they were standing in a layer of destruction that covered wide ground. It wasn't just one home or one wall. It was an entire zone, a place hit hard, covered with salt and fire.
But there was something more, something unexpected. The geologists noticed a line running across the basin, a thin seam of white. Not salt, not chalk, something porous. She dug into it with a tool, lifting a piece of the layer. It crumbled in her hand, but not like soil. More like ancient ash blended with minerals, lighter, stranger. Almost like what forms after a firestorm meets a chemical explosion. "What is this?" a member asked. She didn't answer. She needed more samples. For now, the only clear thing was this: the ground beneath them had once burned from the top down, not from the bottom up. The destruction came from above. And just then, a realization spread among the group. If the event was sudden, if it spread across the entire city, if it scorched everything in seconds, then Lot's wife, who was running behind her family, would have been directly in the path of the blast. The team looked up the slope toward the pillar. It stood alone, tall, silent, almost guarding the ruins, a shape against the sky, a form carved by wind or something else. Every detail of the ancient story lined up with what they were seeing. But the land had one more strange gift to reveal. As they climbed back toward the pillar, one researcher noticed something faint in the salt wall beside it. A thin horizontal line cut across the entire face of the mountain. A layer, a boundary of destruction. He ran his fingers across it. It was warm. Not from sunlight. Sunlight couldn't heat a thick layer of inner salt that fast. There had been stories of strange heat pockets in Mount Sodom. Some said it was the mountain's salt flow. Others said it was chemical reactions deep underground. But none of those explained a warm layer inside a cold ridge. "Why is this warm?" a member asked. The geologist paused. "Salt shouldn't hold heat like this." Another asked, "Is something still happening inside the mountain?" No one answered. The team climbed higher until they stood once again before the human-shaped pillar. The sunlight hit its curves, revealing fresh cracks, fresh edges, fresh lines. It looked more detailed than the day before, more like a body frozen mid-turn. The lead researcher set down his equipment and prepared to take samples from the pillar's base. But as he approached, he saw something that stopped him. Footprints. Not clear, not sharp, but shallow depressions in the salt soil. Not from shoes, not from boots. From bare feet. Human feet. The group rushed over. The prints were faint, almost erased by the wind, but they were real. The prints led toward the pillar and stopped at its base. Everyone felt the same chill. Were these old, new, erosion patterns, or something else entirely? The geologist knelt and measured the depth. She said, "Too soft, too recent." Someone whispered, "Who walked here?" No one knew. The desert keeps no footprints for long. Wind erases everything within hours. The researcher followed the faint prints until they seemed to disappear. They circled the pillar. Then, they vanished. But the last print, the one closest to the pillar, was deeper than the others. As if someone paused there, looking up, looking back. The team stared at the pillar, every mind trapped in the same thought. Was someone drawn here? Did someone try to touch it? Or was the land revealing something older, something from long ago, that erosion had only now uncovered?
Before the team could investigate further, a sharp sound echoed from above. A crack, a snap. All heads turned upward. A piece of the mountain's salt wall broke loose and fell, hitting the ground with a thud. Dust rose into the air. Wind rushed in, hard, fast. The sky darkened. A sudden desert storm. The researchers grabbed their equipment, pulling it close as salt dust blew across the ground. The air turned white. The pillar's shape blurred behind the storm. The wind howled across the ridge, hitting the pillar with sharp gusts. The team shielded their eyes, watching through the haze. The pillar trembled. Not much. Not enough to break, but enough to move. Enough to shift slightly on its base. Salt pillars do not shift like that. Not unless something inside them is changing. When the wind died down, the air cleared enough for the team to see the pillar again. And that's when they saw it. A new line, a new curve, a new shadow across the pillar's left side. One member gasped, "That wasn't there before." The lead researcher approached slowly, heart pounding. The pillar had changed shape during the storm, and now, for the first time, the features looked unmistakable. A shoulder curve, a bent neck, a faint impression of a face looking over one side. Frozen. Caught mid-turn. The team stood frozen too, because this wasn't an illusion, this wasn't imagination, this was real. Something was happening to the pillar, something the desert had kept hidden for thousands of years, until now. But the greatest discovery was still ahead, because only a few meters behind the pillar, buried under a slope of salt, lay the object that would shock the entire team. An object that did not belong to the mountain, an object older than the pillar, something no one expected to find.
The storm had just passed when the team finally saw it, something jutting from the slope behind the pillar. At first, it looked like another lump of salt, but the color was wrong, the shape was wrong, and the texture, even from a distance, didn't match the mountain. One of the researchers wiped salt from his goggles, squinting through the clearing air. It's not salt, it's something else. They moved closer, carefully, slowly. Each step felt heavier than the last. The slope beneath the pillar was a fragile mix of cracked salt and hidden pockets. A wrong step could break the ground, but curiosity pushed them forward. As they got closer, they saw the object more clearly. It was long, smooth, rounded. The surface wasn't grainy like salt. It wasn't rough like stone. It had a soft curve, almost like metal that had been bent, but not melted. And it was buried deep, as if the earth had tried to swallow it whole. One researcher knelt, brushing the salt aside with a gloved hand. The dust slid off easily. Too easily. That was the first sign that this object didn't belong here. "Whatever this is," she said, "it came before the salt." Another member leaned over her shoulder. "Before Mount Sodom formed?" The geologist paused. Before or during something violent? Something that buried everything fast? That single thought echoed through the group.
If this object came from before the pillar, before the destruction layer, before the salt washed over the land, then what was it? They cleared more salt. The shape extended farther than they expected, longer than an arm, maybe longer than an entire body. The curve suggested a container or casing, but no one could be sure. Then someone noticed the surface again, a faint pattern, very faint, but real. Lines, straight lines, not cracks, not fractures, lines made by hands. "It's carved," one of them whispered. The team exchanged silent looks. A carved object hidden behind a possible pillar of Lot's wife? Buried in a destruction zone? Placed in a layer sealed by extreme heat? This discovery changed everything. They cleared more salt until a small part of the shape was free. It was now clear that the object wasn't stone at all. It wasn't pottery. It wasn't wood. It wasn't bone. The material felt unfamiliar, smooth and dense, yet lighter than metal. "What is this made of?" a researcher asked. The geologist pressed her fingers along the exposed curve. "Not salt, not gypsum, not limestone. It doesn't match anything in this area." She tapped it lightly. A hollow sound returned. The same echo the team had heard inside the pillar, but louder, deeper, older. They ran a scanner over the object. The readings came back unstable, jumping between densities. That had never happened before. The lead researcher frowned. "Is it hollow?" Before anyone answered, one member brushed more salt aside and froze. There were marks on the surface, marks shaped like symbols, not letters like modern writing, more ancient, more simple, straight lines crossing at angles, some short, some long, patterns that could be numbers or names or directions, but they were deliberate. Someone put this object here. Someone carved these marks. Someone placed it right behind the pillar, long before the salt sealed the land. "Is this an artifact?" one asked. Another replied, "Or something else they carried when the destruction came." No one dared finish the thought, because if this object belonged to the people of Sodom, or Gomorrah, or any settlement in the plain, then it was the oldest artifact ever found near the Dead Sea. And it survived because it was buried in a moment of fire. Just then, the wind shifted again. It blew across the object, pushing a new wave of fine salt aside. For a split second, the group saw something beneath the surface, something darker, sharper, and more complex. The geologist leaned in. Her eyes widened. "There's more under it," she said. "This isn't one piece. It's connected to something larger underneath." The team dug faster, carefully, yet urgently. The more they uncovered, the more the shape grew. A long, tapering end, a thick center, a slight curve near the base. Something shaped for use, something shaped for hands. Then the moment none of them expected came. One researcher pulled back a handful of salt and uncovered a second shape connected to the first. Smaller, shorter, thin. A handle, a real handle. The object was no random artifact. It was a tool, or a container, maybe a vessel, maybe a case. But whatever it was, someone held it, someone carried it, someone brought it here, and someone dropped it during the destruction. The team stood speechless. A carved object with a handle sealed inside a destruction layer described in one of the oldest stories in the world. If this object was genuine, then the event that buried it was not a myth, not a symbol, not a story meant only to teach. It was something that actually happened. They scanned it again. This time, a clearer signal came. The object was hollow. Inside it, the scanner picked up shapes, small lumps, irregular forms. Something was inside the container. "Do we open it?" a researcher asked.
If this object came from before the pillar, before the destruction layer, before the salt washed over the land, then what was it? They cleared more salt. The shape extended farther than they expected, longer than an arm, maybe longer than an entire body. The curve suggested a container, or a casing, but no one could be sure. Then someone noticed the surface again, a faint pattern, very faint, but real. Lines, straight lines, not cracks, not fractures, lines made by hands. "It's carved," one of them whispered. The team exchanged silent looks. A carved object, hidden behind a possible pillar of Lot's wife, buried in a destruction zone, placed in a layer sealed by extreme heat. This discovery changed everything. They cleared more salt until a small part of the shape was free. It was now clear that the object wasn't stone at all. It wasn't pottery, it wasn't wood, it wasn't bone. The material felt unfamiliar, smooth and dense, yet lighter than metal. "What is this made of?" a researcher asked. The geologist pressed her fingers along the exposed curve. "Not salt, not gypsum, not limestone. It doesn't match anything in this area." She tapped it lightly. A hollow sound returned. The same echo the team had heard inside the pillar, but louder, deeper, older. They ran a scanner over the object. The readings came back unstable, jumping between densities. That had never happened before. The lead researcher frowned. "Is it hollow?" Before anyone answered, one member brushed more salt aside and froze. There were marks on the surface. Marks shaped like symbols. Not letters like modern writing, more ancient, more simple. Straight lines crossing at angles, some short, some long. Patterns that could be numbers, or names, or directions. But they were deliberate. Someone put this object here. Someone carved these marks. Someone placed it right behind the pillar, long before the salt sealed the land. "Is this an artifact?" one asked. Another replied, "Or something else they carried when the destruction came." No one dared finish the thought, because if this object belonged to the people of Sodom, or Gomorrah, or any settlement in the plain, then it was one of the oldest artifacts ever found near the Dead Sea. And it survived because it was buried in a moment of fire. Just then, the wind shifted again. It blew across the object, pushing a new wave of fine salt aside. For a split second, the group saw something beneath the surface, something darker, sharper, and more complex. The geologist leaned in. Her eyes widened. She said, "There's more under it. This isn't one piece. It's connected to something larger underneath." The team dug faster, carefully yet urgently. The more they uncovered, the more the shape grew. A long, tapering end,
A thick center, a slight curve near the base, something shaped for use, something shaped for hands. Then, the moment none of them expected came. One researcher pulled back a handful of salt and uncovered a second shape connected to the first. Smaller, shorter, thin, a handle. The lead scientist hesitated. Not yet, not without understanding the context. But the desert had other plans. Another gust of wind blew across the basin, scraping away more salt. The sun ignited the surface in bright white light, and for a brief moment, the entire object was visible. Long, carved, sealed, with patterns burned into its surface. The team breathed in sharply. "It's a box," the geologist said. "An ancient box." A box buried behind a human-shaped pillar. A box sealed under salt after a firestorm. A box filled with something that survived the heat of destruction. One member whispered, "Did Lot's wife drop this when she turned?" Another answered, "Or someone near her dropped it. Someone running, someone trying to escape." The lead researcher opened his mouth to speak, but then the ground beneath them gave a sudden vibration. Not like the earlier one. Stronger, deeper. The object shifted. Salt cracked. Something beneath the box moved. And then, a sound rose from inside it. A dull, hollow knock. As if something inside the box had shifted. Or something inside the pillar had responded. The hollow knock from inside the box echoed across the basin. Soft, but unmistakable. Every researcher froze. No one moved. No one spoke. The wind itself seemed to stop and listen. For a moment, the world felt held in place, as still as the pillar above them. The lead scientist swallowed hard. "Scan it again," he whispered. A researcher lifted the scanner, hands shaking slightly. The device hummed as waves passed through the buried object. The return reading flashed across the screen. Lines. Shapes. Something inside had shifted positions since the last scan. "It moved," the researcher said. "Something inside moved." The group stepped backward, instinctively pulling away from the object. The idea of something thousands of years old shifting beneath the salt made the air feel heavier. "Is it alive?" someone whispered. The geologist shook her head. "No, impossible. But something inside might have settled, or changed shape under pressure." Another researcher added, "Or heat from yesterday's storm expanded it." They wanted to believe that. They needed to believe that. Anything else would push them into territory no scientist wanted to enter. They crouched again, clearing more salt around the sides. The object was now almost fully uncovered. It was long and oval-shaped, with a thick spine running across the top, carved with ancient markings. The handle was smooth, worn down by hands long gone, and the sealed seam along the side held a faint dark line, as if something had sealed it shut after heat exposure. More salt fell aside, revealing another detail. A small metal strip, thin, rusted, barely holding on, ran across one section. That meant it wasn't just carved, it had been reinforced. A crafted container, a personal container, something someone carried with purpose. Someone who fled, someone who ran, someone who maybe looked back. One researcher leaned closer. This could have belonged to a person who lived the moment the destruction hit. A real handle. The object was no random artifact. It was a tool. Or a container. Maybe a vessel. Maybe a case. But whatever it was, someone held it. Someone carried it. Someone brought it here. And someone dropped it during the destruction. The team stood speechless. A carved object with a handle, sealed inside a destruction lair described in one of the oldest stories in the world. If this object was genuine, then the event that buried it was not a myth, not a symbol, not a story meant only to teach. It was something that actually happened. They scanned it again. This time, a clearer signal came. The object was hollow. Inside it, the scanner picked up shapes, small lumps, irregular forms, Something was inside the container. "Do we open it?" a researcher asked. Another said, "Maybe someone fleeing with Lot's family." A third added, almost too quietly, "Maybe someone who didn't make it." The desert didn't answer. It only waited. Finally, the time came to lift the container. The lead scientist gave a nod. Two researchers slid their hands under the object and began to raise it slowly. It was heavier than they expected, but not too heavy. As they lifted it, salt cracked and fell away in sheets. The object came free with a dull rasp. The underside told a new story. Burn marks ran along its base, long black streaks, melted edges, patches of fused material. Something unbelievably hot had struck the container and sealed it shut. The air surrounding the moment must have been hotter than molten metal. "What could create heat like this?" the lead scientist asked. Everyone knew the answer, but no one wanted to say it. A firestorm from above. A blast hotter than any earthly flame. Exactly what the ancient record described. They placed the container gently on flat ground. The carved markings glowed faintly in the new sunlight. Shapes crossed into one another. Straight lines, angled strokes, tiny symbols like stars or spears. "Can anyone read it?" one member asked. "No," the geologist said, "but it's not random. Someone marked this for a reason." The wind swept over the desert floor again. Another wave of salt swirled around them, landing softly near the pillar. When the dust cleared, one researcher gasped. A new crack had formed in the pillar. Thin, sharp, running down the left side like a tear. The lead scientist stared. "This pillar is changing faster than any natural formation. And it looks more like a person every hour," another whispered. But the geologist shook her head slowly. "We can't focus on the pillar now. We need to open the box." A shiver moved through the group. Opening it meant touching something sealed for thousands of years. Something carried during panic and destruction. Something buried under fire, salt, and time itself. The lead scientist took a deep breath. "We'll open it slowly, minimal disturbance." They gathered around the object. The rusted metal strip was fragile, but still holding. One researcher used a thin tool to pry a corner upward. The metal bent with a soft crack. Salt dust fluttered out. He continued lifting. The seam opened wider. A faint smell escaped. Dry, sharp, old. Air trapped since the day the cities burned. Another tool slid under the seam. The container groaned softly. It was almost open. "Careful," the lead said. "If there's anything organic inside." But before he could finish, the container released a long, slow sigh, like a breath of ancient wind escaping after millennia. The lid shifted, and then it lifted. Inside, the group saw darkness, layers of compacted material, dust, bits of something fragile, tiny fragments. The researcher tilted a light downward. Everyone leaned in. Inside the container were small objects, some broken, some intact, some barely recognizable. A bead carved from bone. A small piece of cloth burned along the edges. A thin strip of hardened clay with a faint mark. A fragment of a tool. And something else, something wrapped in a piece of blackened fabric. "What is that?" a member asked. The lead scientist reached in gently, lifting the charred fabric. It crumbled at the touch, revealing the object it had hidden. A small, curved piece of stone. Smooth, shaped, polished, but not like a stone for building, not like a stone from the land, something carved for carrying. "It's a charm," the researcher whispered, "a personal charm. A charm dropped in the middle of terror. A charm buried behind a pillar shaped like a woman. A charm sealed under the heat of destruction. Someone owned this. Someone lost this. Someone was here. The moment everything changed." Before the team could speak,
A shadow passed across the ground. They looked up. The pillar was catching the light differently again. Another curve had formed, another line. Its shape sharpened with each hour the storm passed. The lead researcher whispered, "It's almost like it's waking up." But the geologist wasn't looking at the pillar. She was staring at the carvings on the charm. She said, "I'm seeing something like this. Not here, not in this region, but in early Near Eastern graves."
"What does it mean?" someone asked. "It means someone carried this charm for protection or memory." A pause. "Maybe the person who dropped the container." The team fell silent. The pillar stood behind them. The ruined wall lay below them. The melted clay scattered across the slope told its own story. And now this box, this relic, added a human voice to the mystery. Someone lived this moment. Someone ran. Someone carried these things. Someone dropped them behind the pillar. The lead scientist closed the lid gently. "We need to date this." The geologist nodded. "Yes, but first, there's something else." She knelt beside the container's pit and brushed deeper into the salt. Her hand hit something solid, something flat. She dug faster. Salt crumbled away. A surface appeared. Not curved, flat, smooth, carved. The shape of a tablet. Her voice shook. "There's more buried here, a lot more." She dug again. Another edge appeared. The others joined her. Line by line, the shape grew bigger. Not an object, not a tool, not a charm. A full stone tablet, carved, sealed in the destruction layer, placed behind the pillar's location. The team stared, speechless. Someone recorded something at the moment the cities fell, and the desert had hidden it until now. The salt crumbled away from the buried shape, one handful at a time. Each stroke revealed more of the flat surface lying beneath the container's pit. The researchers worked slowly, brushing and lifting the grains as gently as if they were touching a sleeping creature. The more they uncovered, the clearer it became. This wasn't a rock. This wasn't debris. This was a crafted tablet. A thin edge appeared first. Straight, smooth, almost sharp. Not the broken edge of a collapsed stone, but the finished edge of an object someone shaped with skill. The geologist ran her fingers across the corner, eyes narrowing with recognition. "This is deliberate work," she whispered. "Not natural." The team cleared the salt even faster now. With each handful removed, more of the carved surface came into view. The tablet was rectangular, not large, but heavy-looking, and across its face, faint lines appeared. Lines arranged in patterns, lines that almost looked like writing. "Is that script?" someone asked. "It might be," the lead researcher said. The team worked around the tablet's edges until they could lift it. When they finally raised it from the salt bed, the weight surprised them. Denser than normal stone, almost metallic. They set the tablet on a flat surface, wiping away the last layer of powder. And then they saw it clearly. Carvings. Dozens of carvings. Symbols arranged in straight columns, not random scratches or erosion marks, but intentional inscriptions. Lines that formed shapes. Shapes that formed symbols. Ancient marks that hinted at meaning too old for modern eyes. A quiet awe fell over the group. This might be one of the oldest inscriptions ever found in this region, the geologist said softly. Older than the desert, older than Mount Sodom as we know it. One researcher leaned closer, pointing at a repeating symbol.
a V-shaped mark, another mark shaped like a flame, a third shaped like crossing lines. The symbols repeated, forming a pattern that marched across the stone. "What language is this?" a team member asked. "It's not Hebrew, not Greek, not any script from the later periods." Then the geologist whispered, "This looks like proto-writing from before alphabet systems." "Before the alphabet?" someone echoed. "That means it could be from the early Bronze Age or earlier, which is exactly the era the cities of the plain are connected to." They all stood silent. Air drifted over the basin. Salt dust rose in tiny spirals around the tablet, and the pillar, standing behind them, cast a long shadow stretching toward the artifact, as if pointing at it. "Read it," one of them said quietly. The lead researcher gently traced the carvings with his eyes. Some lines were deep, some faint, some worn by time or heat. The symbols were old, older than any script in common use.
But some patterns looked familiar, not because he knew them personally, but because the human mind recognizes intent when it sees it. "This was meant to record something," he said, "something important." He pointed to a cluster of symbols near the top, 3 downward lines, a flame-shaped mark, a circle, then 2 crossing shapes. "What does it mean?" someone asked. "We don't know," he said, "but this symbol, the flame, it repeats across the entire tablet." The flame symbol, a reminder of the destruction, or a warning of it. Another researcher found something even more unsettling near the center of the tablet, a series of small symbols arranged in a line, each one shaped like a person, or what could represent a person. Tiny stick-like figures, all standing upright, except one. One figure was carved differently, bent, turned, leaning away from the others. "Is that someone turning?" the researcher asked. "Or falling," another said. "Or looking back," a third whispered. The entire group felt the meaning settle in their minds. The tablet might be describing an event, or a story, or a memory of destruction, a memory of a figure who turned, a memory tied to the pillar standing behind them. But the carvings held something else, something that made the scientists lean in until their foreheads nearly touched the stone. Near the bottom of the tablet, the symbols changed. The lines became sharper, the shapes more chaotic. Flames carved deep into the surface, like the hands that carved them were desperate, like the person knew something terrible was coming, or had already begun. One symbol repeated over and over again, a shape like falling fire. "It's describing something from above," the geologist said. "Over and over, fire falling." "And this," the lead researcher said, pointing to another cluster, "this looks like movement, people running." Another symbol repeated, a triangular shape pointing upward. "Mountains?" someone guessed. "People running to the mountains," another said. The researchers exchanged looks. It was the same story, the same path, the same escape described in the ancient text. And then silence, because near the very bottom of the tablet, they saw something they had never expected. A final symbol, a single figure, tall, thin, standing alone, separated from the rest, surrounded by a carved outline, a shape that looked like a pillar. "No," one of them whispered. "It can't be." Another swallowed hard. This is a depiction. It has to be." The lead researcher felt his pulse rise. This tablet was carved during the event. Someone was there. Someone saw it. Wind cut across the ridge again. Salt lifted from the ground. The pillar's shadow swayed across the tablet like a living thing. And then something else happened. The geologist brushed the corner of the stone and felt heat. Not from her hand, not from the sun. The tablet was warm, warm like the pillar had been, warm like the destruction lair, warm like something stored with fire.
This tablet shouldn't hold heat, she whispered. Another researcher touched it. It's warm, he said. Too warm. Far too warm. The warmth spread, as if something inside the tablet still remembered what happened, as if the story carved into the stone had never cooled, as if it was waking up. The team stepped back. The geologist stared at the glowing carvings, heart pounding. This tablet wasn't just made during the destruction, she said. It might have been inside the destruction. The lead scientist looked up at the pillar. Its shape leaned slightly, too slightly to be natural. They saw her, he whispered. Whoever carved this saw her. The geologist's eyes widened, and there might be more tablets under the salt. And with that, the earth beneath them trembled. Not softly, not gently, but with a deep rolling vibration that shook the slope. The tablet rattled on the ground. Salt cracked behind the pillar. The mountain groaned, and then everything went still, except for one thing. A new sound. Deep, hollow, echoing from inside the pillar itself. The hollow sound coming from inside the pillar stopped everyone where they stood. It echoed through the salt walls like a distant drumbeat, low and uneven, as if something deep within the formation had shifted. The researchers exchanged alarmed glances. They had felt tremors. They had seen cracks. They had watched the pillar change shape. But a sound? A sound from inside the salt? That was something none of them could explain. The lead scientist stepped closer, raising a hand to quiet the others. The desert wind calmed for just a moment. The basin seemed to hold its breath. He pressed his ear gently to the surface of the pillar. Silence. Then, a soft, rhythmic pulsing. Not steady, not random, something between. He jerked back, eyes wide. It's vibrating. The geologist immediately moved in, placing her hand against the salt surface. The inside, it's shifting. She shook her head. Salt doesn't do that. Not like this. Something is moving, or reacting. Another researcher added, the tablet warmed up, the container groaned, now this? The entire group felt it. Something ancient was stirring. The pillar vibrated again, just slightly, enough to let salt dust fall from its surface. The small grains sparkled as they drifted into the air, and for a moment, the pillar's outline seemed to pulse in the sunlight, like a shadow caught between stillness and motion. One researcher whispered, what if the heat from the tablet woke something inside it? Another replied, or what if the tablet was placed here because of what was inside it? The pillar remained silent after that final vibration, but the tension it left behind stayed heavy. The team stood still, unsure of what to do next. The tablet lay on the ground, its carvings glowing faintly in the sunlight. The container sat open, ancient objects spread before them like a message from a world long gone. The geologist knelt again beside the tablet, brushing away more dust. Her eyes scanned the lower carvings, trying to understand what story they told. A series of marks near the bottom caught their attention. Small flame symbols arranged in a circle, surrounding a solitary figure. The carving looked frantic, almost desperate, as if the person who made it was carving in fear, rushing to finish before something terrible happened. This last section, she said slowly. It looks like someone was recording the destruction as it happened. One researcher crouched beside her. A witness? Yes, she said. Someone who saw the fire fall. Someone who saw the land change in an instant. Someone who saw the woman who turned. A chill passed through the group. The wind seemed to twist around them, brushing against the tablet as if it trying to cover it again. But the geologist continued. Look here, she said, pointing to a set of symbols near the edge. This mark, this looks like a warning symbol found in other early cultures. It means danger, coming destruction, or a curse. The lead scientist leaned in. A warning about what? The geologist traced the next symbol. It was shaped like a downward arrow. Below that, a flame. Below that, a circle that might have represented the ground. It might mean fire falling, she said, or destruction from above. The group had no time to process it, because at that very moment, another sound rolled through the mountain. A deep groan, a slow cracking. The earth trembled again, not violently, but with purpose, as if something beneath them was pressing upward, moving through layers of salt, stone, and ancient memory. A researcher stepped back. If this pillar collapses, but the lead scientist shook his head. It hasn't collapsed for thousands of years. It won't collapse now. But something inside it is reacting. Another asked, reacting to what? The answer came in the form of another hollow knock from within the pillar. The geologist whispered, the tablet is reacting too. Indeed, the carvings on the stone seemed brighter now. The flame symbols glowed in the sunlight, their edges casting tiny shadows across the surface. The carved figure at the bottom, leaning, turning, seemed almost deeper, as if the stone itself had etched it further. What if this tablet wasn't just a record? What if it was meant to be found when the land was ready? The geologist looked at him. Ready for what? No one answered. Suddenly, another researcher shouted from the far side of the slope, "There's something else here!" The group rushed to him. Salt had collapsed in a small slide, revealing another object partially buried in the hill. Something flat, something large, something with corners. Another tablet, but this one was bigger, much bigger. The team cleared the salt quickly. The new tablet was nearly twice the size of the first. Cracks ran across its surface, but its carvings were still visible. Symbols, deeper, more confident, more detailed. And at the center of this larger tablet was a carving unlike anything they had seen so far. A circle. Inside the circle, a jagged shape, lines extending downwards like falling fire. And beneath it, tiny figures running. A picture, a literal image, a carving of a firestorm from above. They looked at one another. The lead scientist's voice trembled as he spoke. This is it. Someone recorded the destruction visually. This is a depiction of the event. The geologist whispered, a meteor airburst, or something else the ancients saw, something that turned cities into ash in seconds. But the image held one more detail. At the far right side of the tablet, away from the falling fire, stood another figure, alone, slightly carved apart from the others, close to a tall shape, a pillar-shaped outline. A researcher covered her mouth with her hand. That's her. They carved her. They carved the pillar.
The team stared at the ancient image as the desert wind churned around them, and the pillar beside them seemed to tower higher than before, its outline catching the shifting shadows. The lead scientist whispered, they saw her change. They saw her transformed. And then, the large tablet did something none of them expected. It cracked. Not from pressure, not from weight, but from heat. A thin line split across the carving, glowing faintly. The air around the tablet shimmered like rising heat waves. The geologist stepped back. The tablet is heating up, like the first one. The lead researcher swallowed hard. Something is changing in the ground. Another tremor rolled beneath their feet. This one stronger, much stronger. The salt slope shifted. Cracks spread like lightning across the ground. A deep rumble echoed through the mountain. And the pillar? The pillar leaned, slightly, but enough. Enough to make them all stumble. Enough to release a shower of salt from its base.
enough to reveal something none of them had seen before. A hollow space, a cavity under the pillar, and inside that cavity, something glinted. A metallic shine, something shaped, something that did not belong to rock or salt, something hidden under the pillar itself. The glint from beneath the pillar flashed only for a moment, but it was enough. Every researcher saw it, and every heart dropped at the same time. Something metallic was lying in the hollow beneath the structure. Something ancient, something hidden where no natural salt formation should hide anything at all.
The lead scientist was the first to reach the opening. He knelt carefully, pushing aside loose salt with both hands. The hollow beneath the pillar was bigger than they expected, wide enough for a person to crawl into if they dared. The interior walls were smooth, curved naturally by salt flow, but the object lying inside was not natural. A single metallic edge caught the sunlight again. "What is that?" someone whispered. "No idea," the lead said, reaching in with a gloved hand. The metal felt cool, too cool for something buried in the desert. He brushed aside more grains. Slowly, a shape emerged. Not round, not flat, something angular, something with edges far cleaner than the stone tablet above. "It's worked metal," the geologist said, her voice tight. "But metal this old shouldn't survive, not here." The lead scientist pulled the object free. It was a plate. Not large, not heavy, but unmistakably crafted. A thin metal plate shaped by hands, not by nature. With markings cut across the surface, symbols, lines, crossed strokes, and something else. "The same symbols as the tablet," one researcher whispered. They all leaned closer. Yes, the same flame symbol, the same V-shaped mark, the same small figure carvings. The metal plate was an inscription, a twin to the stone tablet, but much older, much stranger, and far harder to explain. Metal inscriptions from the Bronze Age are almost unheard of, the geologist said. People didn't waste metal on writing. "Unless the message was more important than the metal," the lead replied. Another researcher pointed to the edge. "Look, this part melted." A corner of the plate curled inward as if exposed to brutal heat. The surface near that corner was scorched, darkened, warped. "Firestorm damage," the geologist murmured. "The same heat that melted stone, the same blast that twisted pottery, the same destruction that burned the land into a wasteland, the same event that turned one woman into a pillar of salt." The lead scientist lifted the plate higher, letting the sun strike it. More symbols appeared, symbols scratched in haste, some barely legible. They marched in a long line down the center. "This message is from someone who lived it," he said.
"But who hid this under the pillar?" a researcher asked. No one answered. The wind passed through the basin as if holding its breath. Behind them, the pillar stood tall, its shadow falling directly onto the metal plate, almost like the plate belonged there. But the hollow beneath the pillar held another surprise. "There's something else," someone said. The team lowered themselves again to peer inside the opening. The hollow space didn't end where they thought. It extended deeper, curling beneath the pillar like a tunnel formed by heat, not erosion. And embedded in the salt ceiling of that hollow was another object, round, smooth, white, a sphere, but not sulfur, salt. A perfect salt sphere, embedded above the metal plate, almost as if placed there. "Is that natural?" a researcher asked. No, the geologist said immediately. Salt doesn't form perfect spheres. Not here. The sphere was smooth like polished stone. It glistened in the dim light, holding a shape too clean for nature. The lead scientist reached up and tapped it lightly. A dull, hollow sound echoed from within. "It's not solid," he said. Other researchers exchanged glances. What if it's not a sphere? What if it's a shell? A shell made of salt. The air grew thicker. The lead reached up and slowly chipped at the sphere with a small tool. A thin slice of salt flaked off. Another. A crack began to form across the surface, and for a split second, a different material gleamed beneath the thin salt shell. Not white, not grainy, not salt at all. A darker color, smooth, curved.
Inside, the geologist whispered, "There's something else inside this." "What is it?" the lead asked. But before they could break the shell further, the ground trembled again. A rolling vibration moved through the entire ridge. Salt dust poured down from the pillar like rain. The metal plate clattered on the ground. The stone tablet shook violently, and the hollow beneath the pillar widened. "Back!" the lead shouted. "Everyone back!" The researchers scrambled up the slope. The hollow expanded by several inches. A crack tore down the pillar's left side. Salt sheared off in long, thin strips. More of the internal cavity came into view, and suddenly they could see something new inside it. Bones. Thin, white, perfectly preserved. Everyone froze. Bones? Inside the pillar? The geologist stepped forward slowly. "Are those human bones?" "No," the lead said, voice trembling. "They're too small." The bones were long but slender, curled slightly inside the cavity. Rib-like shapes, a thin spine, something like a shoulder. "What kind of creature is that?" someone whispered. The geologist shook her head. "It's not a creature, not an animal native to this area." Then she paused. Her face went pale. "These aren't animal bones. They're the remains of an object, something crafted." "What kind of object has a spine?" someone asked. A single answer rose in the lead scientist's mind. An object with framework, with structure, with pieces meant to articulate. Something symbolic, something carried, something meant to protect. But before he could speak, the salt sphere cracked open fully. The shell split. The inner object rolled gently forward, stopping at the edge of the hollow, just within view. It was small, curved, perfectly shaped. Not bone, not stone, not metal. It was carved from something organic-looking, but hardened with age. A small, human-like figurine, eyes closed, head bowed, arms folded, frozen in a posture of fear or prayer, and the salt had formed around it like a cocoon. One of the researchers whispered, voice shaking, This was inside the pillar." The lead scientist swallowed hard.
"Then the pillar didn't form first." The team stared at him. He continued, "Something was here. Something someone carried, long before the pillar took shape." The geologist trembled. "Then what transformed the salt, captured this, and created the shape we see today?" No one answered, because before they could speak, something else in the hollow moved. Something deeper, something older, something that made a soft, unmistakable sound. A human-like exhale,
the sound that rose from the hollow, that soft, human-like exhale, froze the entire team. Not one researcher moved. Not one blinked. Not one drew in a full breath. The wind didn't make that noise. Salt shifting didn't make that noise. Pressure cracks didn't make that noise. It had been too smooth, too controlled, too close to a breath escaping a pair of lungs, or something shaped like lungs. The geologist took one half step back. "Tell me someone heard that." "I heard it," the lead whispered. "So did I," another said. The hollow beneath the pillar remained dark, still, quiet. But the figurine that had rolled from the cracked salt sphere seemed to stare at them with its closed stone eyes, as if listening too. The carved face, simple but expressive, seemed almost alive in the shifting sunlight. "What made that sound?" a researcher whispered. The lead scientist steadied himself, forcing control back into his voice. "Everyone stay calm. Salt cavities can make strange acoustics, resonance, echoes." But before he could finish, the sound came again. A slow, deliberate exhale. This time, it lasted longer. This time, it echoed deeper. This time, the ground trembled slightly beneath their feet. The geologist whispered the words no one wanted to say. The sound came from inside the pillar. The lead scientist shook his head. "Impossible. It must be air pressure escaping through a crack." Another tremor cut him off, a stronger one this time. Salt dust sprayed from the hollow. Fragments tumbled down the slope. The figurine wobbled where it lay. And then something unbelievable happened. The pillar leaned again. Not a slide, not a crumble, a deliberate lean. Slow, steady, like a massive figure shifting its weight for the first time in ages. "Oh no," one of the researchers whispered. The pillar's shadow moved across the ground, stretching over the metal plate, across the second stone tablet, and finally onto the figurine, like a hand laying claim to what had been hidden. The lead scientist steadied himself. "We need to understand what's in that hollow." He crouched again, shining a light deep inside. The beam illuminated more of the strange interior. Salt walls curved around the cavity like a shell. But deeper inside, behind the figurine and the exposed salt veins, something else glinted.
Something metallic. Something larger than the plate they found. Something partially buried in hardened salt. "Another object?" a researcher said. "No," the geologist murmured. "It's bigger than that." The light revealed a long, straight edge, a corner, a piece of something that looked almost like a panel, flat, metallic, and carved. "What on earth is that?" someone breathed. The lead scientist lifted his light higher. More symbols appeared, the same style as the first plate, the same flame mark, the same figure symbols. "It's a second metal inscription," he whispered, "and it's inside the pillar." Another tremor shook the ridge. The pillar groaned again, no mistaking it now. The sound was deep, pained, like something ancient struggling to move. The geologist backed away. "That's not resonance. Something inside is warming, expanding." "Or alive?" someone whispered before they could stop themselves. Everyone turned sharply. The researcher looked terrified of their own words. I didn't mean it literally. I meant, if something organic were in there."
But the thought was planted. The pillar withheld its secrets, but the cavity offered small clues. The geologist knelt again and brushed the exposed salt wall. She tapped it lightly. A hollow echo returned, not through the whole pillar, but only one section. The lead scientist understood immediately. This is a compartment, a sealed chamber inside the pillar. The team stared. Someone carved a chamber into the pillar? One asked. No, the geologist said, her voice trembling. This chamber existed before the pillar formed. Another wave of silence. The implications hit them all at once. If the chamber existed before the pillar, and the pillar formed around it, then the pillar was not a normal salt formation. Something was encased, the lead whispered, encased by the destruction, encased like the figurine, like the box, like the tablets, like the metal plates. The desert had not built the pillar slowly. The destruction had built it instantly. A single moment of heat so intense that the air crystallized salt around objects, around people, around an entire city. One researcher put a shaking hand over their mouth. Are we standing next to a cast? A mold made by fire? The lead didn't answer. He stared at the figurine, at the metal plate, at the tablet showing the lone figure turned apart from the others, and then at the pillar. Cut into the wall, the geologist said suddenly. We need to see what's behind the cavity. No, the lead replied. If we destabilize it, the whole pillar could collapse. We need answers, she shot back. This may be the only preserved evidence of the event. Before the lead could argue, the hollow exhaled again, this time louder, longer, deeper.
The air that came out was warm, warm like breath, warm like a memory escaping a sealed tomb. The chamber is pressurized, the lead said. Something is forcing air out, or releasing it, the geologist whispered. Another researcher shined their light deeper. Something inside the chamber flickered. Not metal, not bone, but something reflective. What is that? The lead asked. The beam focused. A shape appeared, curved, smooth, polished by time. A face, a carved face, human-like, eyes closed, mouth slightly open. A carved head, part of a larger figure. A statue? An idol? A memorial piece? Someone put a carved figure in here, the lead muttered. But why hide it inside the chamber? But then, the geologist said the part no one wanted to hear. What if this wasn't carved? A beat. What if it's what was left after the destruction? The air in the basin dropped cold. The pillar vibrated again, and the carved head shifted forward just an inch, sending salt falling like snow. One researcher screamed. The figurine on the ground vibrated too, as if reacting. And a deep, rumbling sound rose from the chamber, louder than all before. The pillar leaned again. Cracks split across its surface. And then, a hand-shaped outline appeared beneath the salt, pushing outward from inside the pillar. The outline beneath the pillar's salt crust, the shape that looked like a hand pressing outward, held the entire team in a silence so deep the wind refused to enter it. No one spoke. No one breathed. The desert itself seemed to freeze. The shape remained still for a moment, just long enough for them to believe it might have been a trick of light, a shifting shadow, a patch of uneven salt. But then, the outline pushed again, this time harder, this time deeper. Salt cracked like snapping bone. Dust burst outward in a small cloud. The lead scientist stumbled back. What is happening inside that thing? The geologist didn't answer.
Her eyes never left the outline. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. That is not natural salt flow. The hand-shaped outline remained frozen against the pillar's inner wall, fingers curled, as if trying to grasp something or break free. The shape was too perfect, too human, too deliberate for nature to explain. One researcher whispered what all the others were thinking. Is there a body inside? The lead scientist forced himself forward, gripping the salt surface with trembling hands. No, the chamber formed around something carved, not human remains. Another tremor rippled through the pillar. The outline pressed outward again, harder this time. Salt cracked like snapping bone. The researcher closest to the pillar stepped back so fast they tripped on the ground. Bodies don't press outward after thousands of years. That's impossible. The geologist shook her head, her voice tight. That's not a body. Something inside is expanding, heating, or shifting because of pressure changes. Look at the wall.
She pointed to the cracks spreading from the hand-shaped outline. Line after line radiated outward like veins forming beneath the pillar's skin. The metal plate on the ground vibrated. The figurine rolled another inch. The stone tablets hummed softly, not sound exactly, but a vibration the team felt in their bones. It was all reacting together. The pillar vibrated again, a deep, throbbing pulse. The lead scientist took a shaky breath. There must be pockets of trapped gas inside the chamber. We've disturbed the structure. The pressure is... The pillar interrupted him. A sharp crack snapped down its front side, splitting a long vertical seam. More salt dust poured out, and the outline beneath the surface shifted sideways. Not like pressure, not like expansion, like movement. The geologist whispered, "That's intentional movement. Something inside is moving." The lead scientist turned sharply. "That's impossible." But the geologist didn't back down. It's moving with purpose. Gas pressure doesn't create patterns like hands. It doesn't shift sideways, and it doesn't match the rhythm of breathing. The entire group stiffened, breathing. They had all heard the exhale. Once, twice, then again. What if it hadn't been just trapped air or shifting pressure? What if it was something else escaping? One researcher knelt beside the pillar's base, holding their ear close, despite the fear twisting through their body. Another sound emerged. Not an exhale this time. A faint tapping, inconsistent, uneven, but rhythmic. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap. The researchers stumbled backward. "It's knocking," they said in a shaking voice, like it's signaling something. The geologist closed her eyes. "Whatever is inside, it's responding to the changes we made. The tablet, the container, the broken sphere. The chamber might be releasing pockets of air or heat." But no one believed that explanation. Not anymore. The knocking grew louder, and then the hand-shaped outline pressed harder than ever. This time, the fingers spread. Thin cracks radiated outward from each finger. Salt chunks fell like tiny stones. The fingers were almost fully visible now, curved, human-like, bent slightly as if pressing against a barrier. The lead scientist whispered, Those are proportions of a woman's hand." The geologist swallowed hard. "And the Bible said she turned and became a pillar of salt." The wind cut across the basin like a warning. The pillar shook again, more violently this time. It tilted forward, salt sheared off the top. Tiny shards rained down. The metal plate vibrated so hard it rotated on the ground. The figurine rolled another 6 inches and stopped directly at the lead scientist's feet. He stared at it.
The figurine's posture, arms folded, head bowed, now looked eerily similar to the carved shape inside the hollow, almost like they belonged together. The geologist stepped backward. "We need to get away from the pillar, now." But the lead didn't move, not yet. He crouched and picked up the figurine. The moment he touched it, the pillar reacted. A deep, thunderous crack roared through the formation. The hand-shaped outline burst outward, knocking loose the section of salt. A small hole opened. Warm air blasted from within, hitting the lead scientist in the face. He stumbled back, still holding the figurine. The hollow behind the hand shape glowed faintly. Not bright, not fire. A dull orange-red shimmer, the color of something heated long ago, something that retained warmth across centuries. The team watched in horror as the hole widened, salt breaking, splitting, falling away. Through the opening, something inside the cavity shifted. A shape, a shoulder, a carved upper arm, part of a torso, smooth, curved, unmistakably feminine. The geologist gasped. "It's a statue, a full carved statue." The lead scientist whispered, "No, look closer." Because dust fell away, revealing another detail. The statue's surface wasn't carved stone. It was salt, translucent, crisp, layered in waves as if formed in a flash. Something, someone, had been encased. The pillar leaned again. A sound rose from the cavity. This time, not an exhale, not a knock, but something low, drawn out, almost like a cry trapped in the salt. And from within the cavity, the shoulder moved. Not stone settling, not salt cracking. It moved. The carved shoulder inside the pillar shifted just enough for the salt crust around it to crack. The sound echoed across the ridge like a breaking bone. No one moved. No one grieved. The desert heat felt suddenly colder. The lead scientist took a tiny step forward, though his hands shook so badly, he nearly dropped the figurine he was holding.
"That wasn't settling," he whispered. "That was movement." The geologist grabbed his arm, pulling him back. "We have to get away. That chamber is collapsing. The whole pillar might come down." But the lead didn't take his eyes off the cavity, because the statue inside had not stopped moving. Slowly, carefully, as if waking from a century's deep sleep, the upper torso in the hollow pitched forward by a fraction. The salt coating it peeled away in thin sheets, revealing the smooth shape beneath, a shape unmistakably human, a woman's shape, frozen yet somehow alive in the way it moved. A researcher gasped, She's in there." "It's a statue," another insisted. "It has to be." But their voice cracked, because they all felt the truth creeping into the edges of their minds. This shape did not look carved. It looked preserved. Preserved in a single instant. Preserved the way liquid freezes when exposed to sudden cold. Preserved the way something might harden if hit by unbearable heat, and sealed in salt like a cast. The shape inside shifted again, this time more violently. Salt shattered around the upper arm. Chunks dropped to the ground. The cavity widened open another inch. Salt chunks tumbled down the slope, smashing into the tablets and the metal plate. The figurine in the lead scientist's hand burned hot for an instant, so hot he dropped it with a cry. The tiny carved figure struck the ground and rolled straight toward the opening in the pillar, as if pulled by something inside. It stopped right at the edge of the hollow. The carved woman's head inside the pillar tilted downward. Not much, not clearly, but enough. Enough for the figurine and the statue to seem connected, mirrored, linked through time. The geologist stumbled backward. "We are witnessing something impossible." One researcher pointed with a shaking hand. "The torso, it's more defined. Look at the surface." The salt continued to peel away from the figure inside the pillar, revealing layers that looked disturbingly human. Curved shoulders, a slender neck, the faint outline of a cheek.
The body inside was turned slightly, facing away from the direction of escape, facing back, the exact pose described by ancient text. The geologist whispered what the others feared to say. The pillar formed around someone mid-turn. The wind whipped across the ridge, sending a storm of salt across the pillar's broken surface. The statue inside glowed faintly, light shimmering through the translucent layers like sunlight through ice. "Everyone step back," the lead scientist yelled. But the pillar shook again, this time harder than before.
The head inside the cavity shifted. The curve of a jawline appeared, a faint indentation where lips would be. And then the mouth moved, just slightly, just enough for the salt to crack around it, just enough for a sound, a soft, trapped breath to escape. She was exhaling. The geologist backed up until she hit the stone tablet behind her. "This is not possible," she whispered. "Nothing human survives assault. Nothing living could be inside. There's no way." But the evidence stood in front of her. A woman's figure inside the pillar, a figure turning back, a figure encased in a single instant of destruction, and she was still shifting. The pillar leaned again, dangerously. Cracks spread across its base like lightning. Salt sprayed outward in thin bursts. The metal plate at the team's feet vibrated violently, symbols glowing a faint reddish orange, as if reacting to the movement in the pillar. The stone tablet beside it hummed. The flame symbol carved at its center brightened. The figurine rattled against the ground again, tapping the edge of the cavity. Everything was reacting. Everything was waking. A researcher screamed, "We need to retreat now!" But the lead scientist took one final step toward the pillar. He had to see, had to understand. He raised his light toward the opening. The beam illuminated the salt-coated face inside. The eyes, the curve of a brow, a faint expression frozen in shock and fear. She wasn't looking out. She was looking back, just like the text said. The light shifted slightly, and the surface of the face shimmered in the beam. Not stone, not rock, not carved. Crystallized. Crystallized in a single breath. "Geologist," the lead whispered, "what temperature would it take to crystallize a human body like this?" She swallowed, voice shaking. "Something hotter than volcanic fire, hotter than lightning, hotter than any natural flame on Earth." The lead scientist stepped back, stunned. The figure inside the pillar pressed forward once more. The cavity widened further. Salt rained down like snow. The torso began to emerge. A soft, hollow groan rose from within, like a person trying to speak through layers of stone. But then, a deeper sound boomed through the ridge, not from the pillar, from beneath the ground. It was the sound of something cracking open under the basin. The earth trembled violently. Salt walls split in every direction. The tablets shook. The figurine rattled. The metal plates clanged like bells. And the figure inside the pillar jerked forward, not gracefully, not naturally, but like something breaking free from a frozen prison. The geologist screamed, "It's coming out!" The head tilted. The shoulder cracked free. Salt exploded from the cavity, a cloud of white dust surging into the air. The pillar groaned one final time, and the entire front surface collapsed inward, revealing the full figure inside. The woman, the outline, salt crystallized, turned mid-motion, her face frozen in terror.
And as she stood fully revealed, for the first time in thousands of years, her lips parted. The crystallized woman, the figure sealed inside the pillar for thousands of years, now stood fully exposed. Salt dust swirled around her like smoke. The shape of her body was unmistakable. A woman mid-turn, torso twisted, head angled backward as if pulled by a force she could not resist. Her salt-coated lips were parted. A frozen gasp
a trapped scream, a moment caught in time. Then, her mouth shifted, just slightly, barely, but enough to send every researcher stumbling backward in shock. The geologist grabbed the lead scientist's arm. She can't move. She's crystallized. She can't move. But they had all seen it. The salt around her mouth cracked, flaking away as a new sound rose from deep within the cavity of her body. A faint whisper. Not a voice with breath, but a voice shaped through cracks and echoes. A single sound that made the desert go silent. The lead scientist's flashlight shook in his hand. That was a vowel. That was speech. No, another researcher said, voice trembling. It was air escaping through the cracks. It's not speech. It can't be. But the salt woman's mouth opened again, a little wider this time. Salt split along the corners of her lips. A jagged line ran down her cheek. The expression on her face seemed to shift from fear to agony. And then came another sound, a whisper dragged through ancient salt. Low. A jolt shot through the team. One researcher gasped, "She's saying something. She's..." "Stop," the lead said sharply. "Don't assume anything." But his own voice shook because the sound had been too clear, too shaped, too intentional. The wind swept across the ridge, carrying the whisper farther than it should have. Salt dust swirled up around the woman's form, glowing faintly in the desert light. The geologist edged behind a broken slab of salt, still staring at the figure. This is impossible. This is absolutely impossible. The lead scientist stepped closer again. He had to see, had to hear, had to know if the sound had been real. He raised the light toward her face. The beam struck the salt crystal directly, and for a split second, the salt woman's eyes glimmered. Not opened, not moved, but shimmered from within, reflecting the light like tiny mirrors. A hollow groan rose from her torso now, low, long, trembling. The sound vibrated across the cavity behind her and echoed through the mountain. "What is happening to her?" the geologist whispered.
"She's destabilizing," the lead scientist said. "The pillar breaking open changed the internal pressure. The chamber is releasing heat. The salt layers are shifting." Another sound rose. This one louder, more clear. "Do not?" Every researcher froze. A complete phrase. Shattered. Broken, but recognizable. The geologist covered her mouth with both hands. She whispered the words from memory, words she had read but never thought she would hear echoed in the desert. "Do not look back." A command, a warning. The exact warning the ancient text recorded, spoken moments before a woman turned her head and became what now stood before them. "No," the lead scientist whispered. "This is not possible. Sound doesn't survive thousands of years. Salt can't preserve speech. It can't..." But the woman's form was changing again. Salt along her neck cracked. Her chin dropped slightly. Her jaw shifted, just a fraction. And then the whisper came again, longer now, trembling through layers of salt. "Run." The wind answered with a howl. Salt sheets peeled from her shoulders, fluttering to the ground like broken glass. The torso beneath the salt looked almost smooth, like the desert had formed a cast around her body in a single violent moment. The geologist stepped back several feet. "She is reacting to the tablets," she said suddenly. All eyes turned toward the 2 stone tablets resting in the salt. The carved flame symbols, the falling fire shapes, the running figures,
all glowed faintly. So did the metal plate. Its markings burned orange, like embers. "It's resonating," the geologist said. "The heat, the tremors, the artifacts, they're all responding to the same energy source." The sound rose again. This time, not a whisper, not a breath, but a strained, broken cry. "Lot!" The name echoed across the ridge. One researcher clutched their chest. She said, "Lot!" "No," the lead scientist insisted, shaking his head. No, she couldn't have. There's no vocal system left, no lungs, no muscles. This is pressure release, just cracks and echoes." But he didn't sound convinced. Behind the salt figure, the hollow chamber glowed brighter, a soft red light pulsing like a slow heartbeat inside the pillar. The geologist pointed to it, her voice sharp with fear. "That chamber is heating. The temperature is rising. If it reaches a critical point..." Before she could finish, a deep rumble thundered beneath the ground.
The stone tablets vibrated violently. The small figurine rattled. The metal plate spun in a circle, and the salt woman jerked forward, a motion too strong for settling stone, a motion too sharp to be natural. Her arms didn't move, her legs didn't shift, but her head, it snapped another inch toward the team. Salt exploded from her neck, a crack tore across her face. For a moment, the expression beneath looked almost human. Fear, pain, regret. One researcher screamed, "She's trying to turn again!" The lead scientist stumbled backward, nearly falling. No, the heat is causing expansion, the internal structure. But then, her mouth opened wide. Salt crumbled from her lips. A hollow wail tore from inside her chest cavity, long, echoing, full of terror frozen in time. It washed across the ridge like a shockwave. The tablets flared with light. The metal plate cracked down the center. The figurine spun in the salt. The wind died instantly, as if the desert held its breath. And from the woman's open mouth came a new sound, a fractured warning in a voice made of dust. "It falls." The earth trembled beneath them. The geologist shouted, "Something is happening underground!" The salt woman's jaw cracked wider, and a thick line of red-orange light seeped through the cavity behind her. Something beneath the mountain was waking. Something ancient. Something tied to the destruction. Something that had not finished speaking. The red-orange glow beneath the mountain pulsed again, slow, heavy, like the heartbeat of something buried deep below the salt. The ground trembled with it. Sand trickled down the slopes. The broken tablets rattled in the dust. The team staggered backward as the glow brightened, bleeding through the cracks under the salt woman's feet. Her crystallized form cast a long, trembling shadow across the ridge, tall, thin, shaking with every pulse from the earth. The geologist braced herself against a salt boulder. "That's thermal activity, but nothing in the Dead Sea region glows like that. This isn't geothermal. This is..." A violent tremor cut her off. The ground split open several inches beneath the pillar, sending a crack racing down the ridge like lightning. The salt woman jerked again, her face twisting as new fissures raced across her features. The next whisper spilled from her cracked mouth, sounding like a voice dragged across stone. "Warn them." The lead scientist shook his head in disbelief. No, that's impossible. Salt can't speak. It can't..." But the salt woman lifted her chin by a fraction of an inch. A silent scream seemed frozen in her expression. And then the entire ridge erupted in sound. A deep, thunderous boom echoed from far below, shaking the ground so violently that several researchers fell to their knees. Dust exploded upward. The red glow beneath the earth surged brighter, flooding through the cracks.
One researcher shouted, "It's rising! Whatever it is, it's coming up!" The geologist's face went pale. The destruction layer, the heat signature, it's reactivating. Another boom cracked the earth open wider, a jagged gap stretching toward the salt woman's feet. The red glow pulsed again, brighter and faster now, almost like it was following a rhythm, almost like it was responding to the salt woman's voice. The lead scientist scrambled backward. This can't be happening. The event that destroyed these cities, whatever it was, it's being reactivated. The salt woman's chest cracked open slightly, a hollow echo ringing through the cavity. Then, from the depths of the ridge, a howl rose. A long, low, ancient howl, not animal, not human, not wind, but something older than all three. A force, a memory, a warning carried through time. Salt geysered upward as the crack widened. A burst of scorching air blasted from below, slamming into the salt woman's body. Her form flickered in the heat like a mirage. Salt sheets peeled away from her torso, revealing clearer human shapes beneath. The figurine on the ground spun wildly, pulled toward the widening gap. The metal plates shook violently, their symbols glowing like molten lines. The tablets lit up with fiery cracks that followed their carvings, the falling fire symbols pulsing like they were alive. The salt woman's mouth widened, her teeth faintly visible under layers of crystallized salt. Another whisper came, broken, raw, and urgent. "It's coming. Run." The ground burst open beneath the salt woman, a violent spray of burning air and glowing dust shooting upward like a volcanic breath. The shockwaves slammed into the researchers, knocking several of them backward. The geologist shielded her face. Move back before the ridge collapses." But none of them managed more than a few steps. The force of the heat, the glow rising from the depths, the impossible movement of the crystallized woman, it all held them in a strange, horrified trance. The salt woman's entire chest glowed from within, as if the fire that destroyed the cities had been trapped inside her body for thousands of years and was finally breaking free. Cracks raced across her crystal torso like lightning. Her arms strained against the salt that held them. Her spine arched forward, shedding powdered salt with every movement. One researcher shouted, "Get away from her! She's going to..." But then the salt woman's head tilted upward. Her mouth opened wider than it should have been able to.
And her final whisper poured out, a sound older than the ruins, older than the ridge, older than the salt that sealed her. "It returns." The wind died instantly. The desert fell silent. The red glow beneath the earth surged upward, violent, boiling, alive. The entire ridge lurched. The crack beneath the salt woman widened until the ground gave way beneath her feet. Her lower body split from the pillar image, dropping into the opening below. Her upper torso teetered forward, suspended for a single awful moment. And then she fell. Not like stone, not like a statue, but like something once human, collapsing under the weight of an ancient warning. She shattered when she hit the salt floor. Her crystal body broke into hundreds of fragments, each one glowing faintly with the same red-orange light pulsing from the crack. The light spread across the ground like veins of molten fire. The lead scientist staggered backward, staring at the fragments. She's melting. He was right. The shards of her salt-crystallized body softened under the growing heat. Some dissolved instantly into dust, others liquefied into thin streams that slid back toward the crack, as if pulled by a force beneath the ridge. The figurine tumbled toward the opening. The tablets shook violently. The metal plates glowed red-hot, symbols blazing like embers. "The heat is increasing," the geologist shouted. "If we stay here, we're going to be burned alive. Move!" But the earth answered first. A roar thundered from deep underground, a blast of heat erupting through the crack with explosive force.
Salt geysered upward. Fragments of the woman shot into the air like sparks. The ridge buckled under the pressure. The team ran. Salt and dust spiraled around them as the crack tore wider behind their feet. The lead scientist turned once more and saw something rising inside the crack. Not fire, not stone, not gas. Something shaped, something structured, something metallic, glowing brighter with every passing second. It was emerging from the depths, pushing upward through thousands of years of salt and debris. "What is that?" the geologist screamed as she ran. The lead scientist didn't know. But he saw enough to understand one thing. Whatever destroyed the ancient cities, whatever turned a woman into salt, whatever was sealed beneath the mountain, it was coming back to the surface. The crack glowed brighter. The ground trembled harder. The rumbling grew into a roar that shook the entire desert. And through the smoke and salt and dust, a massive metallic shape began to push through the opening, rising like something waking from a burial. The massive metallic shape rose slowly, forcing its way through the glowing crack beneath the ridge. Salt shattered around it like ice breaking against a rising ship. Dust blew upward in thick, swirling clouds. The team stumbled across the slope, scrambling for distance as the earth heaved beneath their feet, but they couldn't look away. They were witnessing something no human eyes had seen for thousands of years. Something buried, sealed, and forgotten. Until now. A jagged corner of the rising shape glinted in the red light, reflecting a harsh beam across the salt. The exposed edge was curved yet sharp, not like a natural rock, not like a collapsed structure. "It's a craft," the geologist whispered as she ran. "It has to be. Some kind of ancient structure, buried by salt flow." But the lead scientist shook his head. "No," he gasped, struggling for breath. "Salt doesn't cover structures like this. Salt absorbs them, crushes them, destroys them." Another piece emerged, a long cylindrical form, pushing upward through the crack like a rising monument. The glow beneath it spread across the ridge, bathing the entire slope in a molten red light. The ground groaned, swaying under the pressure. One researcher yelled over the noise, "Whatever it is, it's huge!" They were right. The exposed portion alone was larger than the pillar had ever been. Thick, heavy, ancient, and clearly crafted by intelligent hands. The structure was not shaped by nature. It was built. But by who? And why bury it beneath the mountain? Salt geysered upward again, revealing new details. Lines, panels, engravings.
Symbols etched into the metallic surface. The same flame-shaped marks seen on the tablets. The same falling fire symbol, repeated in patterns along the hull. The lead scientist's breath caught in his throat. "It's the same script," he said. "The same language. Our tablets, these symbols, they match this thing exactly." The geologist stared at the engravings, eyes wide. "But that means this object is older than the cities, older than the destruction, older than the pillar." Another tremor rolled across the canyon. The structure jerked upward another foot, tearing the crack wider until the entire ridge seemed ready to split in two. The researchers ran farther, slipping down the salt slope as the mountain roared beneath them. They reached a flat formation further from the ridge and turned around, expecting to see fire, collapse, or ruin. What they saw was worse, much worse. The structure's top emerged fully, a massive domed crown with a single circular opening, an opening covered from the inside by something opaque and crystalline. A seal just now cracking. The lead scientist took a trembling step back. "It wasn't buried by accident," he whispered. "It was sealed. Someone sealed it beneath the mountain." The circular seal bulged outward, light glowing behind it. The metal groaned, the seal strained, and then,
With a sharp crack that echoed across the basin, a thin beam of red light pierced through the center of the dome. The geologist inhaled sharply. "It's opening." The beam of red light cut through the sealed dome like a blade, thin at first, then widening as cracks spread across the circular panel. The metal strained, bending outward in a slow, tortured motion. The researchers froze where they stood. Even from a safe distance, the heat radiating from the opening was intense, a dry, sharp heat that scratched their skin like needles. The geologist shielded her eyes. "It's melting through the seal. Something inside is burning its way out." The lead scientist shook his head. No, look at the pattern. That beam is pulsing. It's controlled. It's not melt, it's signal." The beam flickered, bright, dim, in a repeating pattern. A code. The geologist stared, horrified. "It's communicating." Salt slid from the rising structure in waves as if the ancient machine were shedding the desert from its back. More engravings appeared along its curved surface. Rings of symbols, spirals, flame shapes, and a pattern that looked like falling stars.
One researcher whispered, voice trembling, "This is a record, a message. It's the same language carved on the tablets." Cracks zigzagged across the dome as the beam pulsed faster. The circular seal bulged outward until it finally snapped free. A disc of metal the size of a car flipping into the air and crashing onto the ridge with a thunderous slam. A cloud of glowing dust erupted from the opening. The team coughed and shielded their faces as the dust rolled across the basin like fog. The glow illuminated the entire landscape in a red haze. Through the swirling light, something moved inside the opening, a shifting shadow. Tall, slow, deliberate. "What is that?" a researcher whispered. The shadow grew clearer. A long silhouette, curved at the top, narrowing into a thicker central shape. Not a figure, not a creature, a structure. Something like a column made of translucent stone or crystal rising from within the dome like a tower of light. The lead scientist's heart pounded. That's not a beam generator. That's a container." The shadow shifted again. A humming sound rolled outward, low, vibrating, like a note played on an enormous instrument. The vibration shook the salt beneath the researcher's feet. The geologist stumbled forward, staring in disbelief. "It's harmonic. It's singing." The humming intensified. The structure inside the dome glowed brighter. Not red now, a pale white gold light shining from within the translucent column. The lead scientist's voice cracked. "That's not machinery." The light brightened further, pulsing in waves that matched the earlier beam pattern. Each pulse sent a ripple into the ground, causing the tablets to vibrate and the metal plates to glow faintly. The figurine, small and salt-encased, lifted slightly, just an inch, as if pulled toward the rising structure. "Stop!" the lead scientist yelled. But the figurine slipped from the ground and floated toward the dome, drawn by the pulsing glow. The column inside the dome brightened until it glowed like a torch in the night. One researcher whispered, terrified and awestruck, "It's alive!" The lead scientist swallowed hard. "No, not alive. A core. An energy core, or a vessel." The humming rose into a higher pitch, a piercing tone that made the researchers clasp their ears. The translucent column cracked just once, just enough to reveal a shape inside it, a silhouette, human-like, standing perfectly still. The geologist gasped. "There's someone inside that column!" The light surged. The light inside the translucent column flared, so bright that the researchers had to shield their eyes. The silhouette within grew sharper, clearer, more defined, a human-like form. Tall, thin, unmoving, but not made of flesh.
The column cracked again, a clean, ringing sound like glass splitting. A hairline fracture spread across the surface, glowing white-hot. The lead scientist forced himself forward a few steps, squinting into the light. "That's not a person," he whispered. "It's..." He stopped, because he didn't know what it was. The silhouette stood upright inside the crystalline column, arms close to its sides. The head was bowed slightly, as if resting or praying. "It looks like an idol," one researcher said. "Or a preserved body," another whispered. "No," the geologist said, her voice tight. "Look at the symmetry, the joints, the proportions. That's engineered." The column pulsed again. The humming deepened. Salt cracked beneath their feet. A blast of heat shot upward from the crack in the ridge, swirling around the dome like a halo of fire. And then, the column split. A vertical line of red light tore down its center. The researchers stumbled back as the entire structure shook. The translucent shell peeled outward, slowly, deliberately, as though obeying an ancient command. The humanoid shape shifted for the first time. The lead scientist gasped. It moved. The figure's head lifted, just a fraction, but enough to scatter beams of white gold light through the broken column. The geologist stepped backward until she hit a salt boulder. "What is this place? What is that thing?" The figure lifted its head fully now, revealing a face smooth as polished stone. No features, no eyes, no mouth, only the faint suggestion of a human form. And yet, the air around it vibrated as if it were breathing. A crack raced down the column's side, and with a final, splitting roar, the crystalline shell shattered outward, sending shards of glowing material scattering across the ridge. The figure stepped forward, not walking, sliding, as if gravity had momentarily forgotten it. The researchers froze. It stood taller than any of them, its surface faintly reflective like metal softened by extreme heat. Its limbs were long and perfectly proportioned. Its torso bore swirling patterns, the same patterns carved into the ancient tablets. The lead scientist felt his breath catch. The tablets weren't describing a person. He pointed at the figure. They were describing this. The metallic figure turned its head toward him, a slow, smooth movement that sent a cold wave through the air. Then, it raised an arm. Not quickly, not threateningly, but deliberately, as if reaching for something. The figurine, the tiny carved doll that had once been encased in salt, floated directly into its hand. The figure closed its long fingers around it. The geologist trembled. "It's reclaiming it. That figurine, it belonged to them." The humming around the dome intensified. Symbols along the figure's torso glowed like living embers. Then, for the first time, the figure turned toward the broken pillar where the salt woman had once stood. It bowed its head, not in sorrow, not in reverence, but in acknowledgement.
The ground trembled again, stronger this time. The crack beneath the dome widened audibly. More of the structure began to rise. The lead scientist's voice cracked with fear. "The entire vessel is powering up!" The light surged. The vessel's light surged, blinding white gold pulsing with a rhythm that seemed almost alive. The entire dome glowed from within, casting long shadows across the salt ridge. The metallic figure held the figurine in one hand, its reflective surface shimmering with each pulse of light. At its feet,
Shards from the shattered column melted into the salt, leaving ripples of glassy residue. Then, the ground rumbled again. Not small, not subtle. A violent, rolling quake that rippled through the ridge and into the valley below. The geologist staggered, grabbing a jagged piece of salt. The whole mountain is reacting to that thing. Whatever it's doing, it's destabilizing everything. The lead scientist shook his head. No, it's not destabilizing, it's activating something. The vessel continued to rise through the crack, its full scale now obvious. The curved dome was only the top. Beneath it, more metallic layers forced upward, each covered in ancient symbols and flame-like patterns. The lead scientist counted them in disbelief. 3 layers? 4? 5? This thing is enormous. The geologist pressed a hand to her chest. It was buried under the entire southern ridge. Another layer emerged, this one engraved with the largest symbol yet, a circle with jagged lines descending from it like falling fire. The same symbol carved in the oldest tablet, the same symbol found on burned ruins, the same symbol describing the destruction. One researcher whispered, "Is this the source of the firestorm?" The lead scientist didn't answer. He couldn't, because he recognized something else now, something far worse. Across the ridge, the air shimmered as heat distortion rippled through the valley. Salt geysers shot upward in bursts. Dust spiraled into vortexes around the vessel. And then, the metallic figure turned toward the rising structure. It raised the figurine to its chest. Symbols along its torso glowed brighter, forming lines of light that traveled down its limbs and into the ground below.
The desert trembled with it. Salt cracked in long sheets across the ridge. Dust spiraled into the air, forming thin funnels that twisted like dancing shadows. The faint glow on the horizon pulsed again. Once, twice, then held steady. A slow, cold realization spread through the researchers. The vessel had sent a signal, and something had answered. The lead scientist stared toward the horizon, his voice hollow. That pattern, that frequency, it's responding. Something out there is responding. The geologist shook her head violently. No. There's nothing out here for miles, nothing but desert and salt. Nothing could... But then, the wind changed. It didn't blow from one direction. It didn't sweep across the slope. It didn't move naturally at all. It pulled. A soft but undeniable pull, as if the air was being drawn toward the vessel, as if the desert itself was inhaling. The geologist stumbled forward, grabbing the lead scientist's sleeve. Do you feel that? The air pressure. Something is drawing everything toward the vessel. The vessel answered with a low hum, rising in pitch. Lights across its exposed hull glowed in rippling waves. Symbols pulsed like beating hearts. Panels opened along the sides, revealing more crystalline surfaces beneath. The metallic figure standing at its base raised the figurine in one hand and extended the other toward the sky. Its polished surface glowed brighter with every pulse from the vessel. "Look!" a researcher shouted. "Something is happening above us!" The sky twisted. Clouds, thin, scattered, harmless, spiraled together unnaturally. What had been a pale horizon darkened into a swirling column of light and shadow. The pulse from the distant horizon moved faster now, flashing in rhythm with the vessel's core. The lead scientist gasped. "It's mapping. It's creating a connection." The geologist shook her head violently. No, there's nothing out here for miles. Nothing but desert and salt. Nothing could..." But then,
The researchers took shelter behind a fallen slab of salt as another shockwave rippled out from the vessel. The ridge cracked deeper, sending tremors across the basin.
The geologists looked at the ground beneath her and gasped. The destruction layer, look! The layer of burned ground, ancient ash, and fused stone. The layer that had once marked the fiery end of the cities was glowing. A faint orange shimmer, pulsing in the same rhythm. As if the land itself remembered. As if the memory of the destruction was being awakened. The lead scientist covered his mouth. This is the same signature recorded at the city sites, the same heat pattern, the same mineral alignment. His voice trailed off as a terrifying thought formed in his mind. The destruction wasn't caused by a meteor. It wasn't a natural firestorm. It wasn't a volcanic blast. It was this: the vessel's core. One researcher whispered what the lead scientists could not say aloud. Was this the weapon that destroyed the cities? The ground answered with a violent tremor. The vessel's dome split fully open, revealing a hollow chamber inside, glowing with swirling columns of light that moved like liquid fire. The metallic figure stepped onto the vessel's platform, raising the figurine as if presenting it. Symbols flashed across the platform beneath its feet. The vessel responded. A beam of white gold light shot from the heart of the chamber straight upward into the swirling clouds, connecting ground to heavens in a pillar of blazing energy. The wind roared outward from the vessel. Salt storms erupted from the ridge. The air shimmered with heat and static. "Get down!" the lead scientist yelled. The team ducked behind the slab as a shockwave blasted across the valley. Salt blasted past them like a sandstorm. Metal fragments from the cracked tablets skittered across the ground. The howl from the distant horizon grew louder. It wasn't wind. It wasn't thunder. It was a tone. The same tone as the vessels, but deeper, older, colder. The answering signal. The vessel's beam intensified, and the sky answered. A glowing shape appeared within the swirling clouds. Something massive, too massive to comprehend. Not a ship, not a meteor, not a storm. Something shaped